The president has been shot. Early evening, July 13th, shot rings out in Pennsylvania sky. 10 bullets fly through the air. One of them catches the ear of President Donald J. Trump. The president has been shot. Donald Trump is lucky to be alive. The press, Don Jr., even Hulk Hogan have called him a hero.
When they took a shot at my hero.
Former President Donald Trump receiving a hero's welcome.
To be met by people who already thought he was a hero.
Received a hero's welcome.
But was Donald Trump a hero? How do you judge a president? I mean, what would you have done?
I'd say you can't truly know how you'll respond in a moment of danger until you're actually confronted with it.
Don't get me wrong, I'm a 5'8", 12-stone lawyer from Croydon. If anybody so much as pointed a gun at me, I'd be on the floor cowering and crying and whimpering. Luckily, there's a bunch of people we can compare Donald Trump to. This is America. They take pot shots at their presidents all the time. 11 of 45 presidents have been shot at. Lincoln, Garfield, McKinley and Kennedy all shot dead. Taylor and Harding were probably, definitely, maybe poisoned. Bullets were fired at but missed Jackson, FDR, Truman and Ford. Teddy Roosevelt and Reagan were shot but survived. You can add Trump to that list now too. Andrew Jackson was the 7th American president, but he was the first to be shot at. In 1835, a guy called Richard Lawrence decided to take a pot shot at the president. Lawrence was an unemployed house painter. In those days, the chemicals in paints were quite toxic, and they probably sent him completely mad. Lawrence was completely potty. He thought he was the King of England. He waited for Andrew Jackson to leave a funeral in North Carolina. As he walked past him, he pulled out a pistol and fired at the back of the president. The gun misfired. He dropped that gun, pulled another, pulled the trigger, and again it misfired. Andrew Jackson's reaction was perhaps predictable. He was a war hero. He was 68. He walked with a cane. He took that cane and used it to beat the king of the wild frontier himself, Davy Crockett, pulled the two men apart, prevented Jackson from killing Lawrence. When it went to trial, it took the jury 5 minutes to find Lawrence not guilty by way of insanity.
Hear the call throughout the land, come and proudly take your stand. Now uphold your chieftain's hand, Roosevelt the cry. Blow the bugle, beat the drum.
Surely the best comparison though is with Theodore Teddy Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt, 26th President of these United States of America, at your service.
Both of them projected a masculine image. Theodore saw himself as a cowboy war hero. They both lived in New York. Teddy was the governor. They're both Republicans. Trump was very popular as a TV host.
You're fired.
Teddy Roosevelt was a popular author. In the election of 1900, he was William McKinley's running mate. They won a famous victory, offering peace, victory and prosperity to the American people, not that dissimilar from what Donald Trump is offering in 2024. 6 months later, McKinley himself was shot dead by an anarchist. Theodore Roosevelt was president. Roosevelt served 2 terms. Trump tried to build a wall. Roosevelt built the Panama Canal. In 1912, just like Donald Trump, he was running to regain the presidency. In October 1912, he was just leaving the McGinley Hotel on 3rd Street. There was a large crowd. He was trying to get into his car. He was talking to the crowd, shaking hands, doing what politicians do. In the crowd was a man called John Schrank. He pulled out a gun. Yet another lunatic with a gun pointed at the president. He pulled the trigger. Theodore Roosevelt was shot in the chest. John Schrank was completely potty. He'd had a dream. In the dream, he'd seen President William McKinley rise from his coffin and point his finger at Theodore Roosevelt, saying, "Avenge me, avenge me." I told you he was potty. He shoots Roosevelt is hit in the chest and falls to the ground. Roosevelt's driver and stenographer jumps out of the car, grabs the man and throws him to the ground. Roosevelt, though, at this point is extraordinary. He takes command of the situation. The crowd are about to lynch John Schrank. Roosevelt says, "Leave the poor creature, he doesn't know what he's doing." Roosevelt then orders the police to arrest his would-be assassin and orders them not to harm him. Roosevelt should have gone to hospital, but he doesn't. He just carries on with his day like nothing's happened. He goes to the Milwaukee Auditorium to speak to the crowd. He reaches inside his pocket and pulls out a bloody speech. There's a hole in it. The bullet had gone straight through. The speech was 50 pages long, folded in half, and it slowed down the pace of the bullet, probably saving his life. He said, "I don't know if you know, ladies and gentlemen, but I was shot earlier today, and it takes more than that to kill a bull moose." He apologised to the crowd that he couldn't read his speech because it was covered in blood, and then he said, "I've been shot, I shouldn't be able to speak for too long." He then proceeds to speak for over an hour off the cuff. He spent a full week in hospital. They couldn't remove the bullet. It stayed inside him the rest of his life. He lost the election. Woodrow Wilson won by a landslide. John Schrank went to court and pleaded guilty, but the court wouldn't accept the plea. They determined that he was in fact insane. Schrank argued to no effect at all that he was genuinely trying to stop Roosevelt from having a third term and becoming a king. Schrank spent the rest of his life in prison, 31 years. By all accounts, he was a model prisoner and even went out on day release on his own. In 31 years, he never received a letter. He never received a single visitor. You know, I think a hero is someone who does the right thing, saves the day, faces the danger, does it selflessly, someone who helps other people despite the personal danger. Under that definition, Roosevelt was indeed a hero, but not for making that speech. That was a tough, bloody-minded thing to do, making that speech, but it was self-serving. After all, he was trying to get elected. To my mind, Teddy Roosevelt was a hero because he did the right thing. He prevented the crowd from doing something they'd regret. He protected a vulnerable person.
And you'll never hear it from me a second time because it's actually too painful to tell.
Last week I took a bullet for democracy.
Donald Trump got shot and I condemn it. That is a terrible thing. The Secret Service were heroes. They literally put themselves in the line of fire. Corey Compatore was a 50-year-old father and husband, and he threw himself over his family and he lost his life.
A community in mourning. Dozens of fire trucks formed a procession through Freeport, Pennsylvania to honor 50-year-old Corey Compatore, the retired firefighter and father who died shielding his family from gunfire at Saturday's rally.
There's no doubt in my mind that he's a hero too.
So what was my father's instinct as his life was on the line? Not to cower, not to surrender, but to show for all the world to see that the next American president has the heart of a lion.
When Donald Trump was shot, he fell to the floor and waited for the Secret Service. There's no shame in that. It's what an ordinary person would do. We can hear him, because his microphone's still on, asking the Secret Service if he can get his shoes.
Sir, I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes, sir.
Hold that in your head, it's bloody.
Sir, we gotta move to the bus.
Let me get my shoes.
When he's finally in the embrace of his Secret Service human shield, he then punches the air and says the word fight. Fight? Hero, admittedly, is a rather overused word. We put sticking plasters on our children's knees and we call them heroes. Every year in America there's 500,000 gun-related crimes, 50,000 gun-related deaths, 27,000 gun-related suicides. Every single one is a tragedy. So yes, every victim is a hero.